Let's take you back to our top story on Jagersfontein and the landslides there. Following the collapse, of course, of part of that tailings dam, we're joined now by an expert in environmental governance. She's a director, Carin Bosman. Carin, good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. A lot has been said about what the environmental impact of having what is wastewater effectively running into the Jagersfontein community. Where should government even be looking, including the mine? Where should they even be looking right now to immediately intervene?
Hi, Kathy, and hi to all your viewers. You know, it's not so much as an impact on the environment, because everything that happens in the environment also eventually impacts and affects people. So right now, what is the main concern is all water flows downhill and follows normal natural drainage lines. And on the aerial imagery that we can see up to now, this tailings that has escaped has run down the valley over a number of houses. From what I can see, it's overrun the sewage works of the municipality and went down into a little river stream bed, which is a tributary of the Rietspruit, which then flows a little bit further downstream, not very far, into the Kalkfontein Dam. And now the Kalkfontein Dam is a water supply source for Jagersfontein, for Forest-Smith, and for a number of other places. And should this slimes end up in the Kalkfontein Dam, it can significantly cause impacts on the water supply, on that infrastructure, because it's corrosive and it can damage the pipes. But also it can cause an impact on the aquatic environment and the cattle that drinks from the dam, and people who use the dam water for other purposes. In addition, because the sewage works seem to have been taken away and destroyed in this collapse, all the sewage that's currently still being generated in the town has no place to go but to follow this path of the slimes down that same valley and into the same tributary. And that creates an immediate health risk. So what should be done very shortly? We're in the beginning of the rainy season. We're one thunder shower away of even a bigger spillage and a further extent of it, is that slimes that is flowing down should be blocked. Some trenches need to be dug to prevent it from entering the Kalkfontein Dam, and if it has entered the Kalkfontein Dam, to try and contain as much of it so that more doesn't enter the Kalkfontein Dam should a rainstorm come down tomorrow or on Saturday. And then also to have temporary kind of sanitation, temporary toilet facilities, so that there's not more sewage that goes down on top of the slimes. And I think that's, for me, an immediate action that should be taken this week still.
You know, you bring me to my next point, because already it's been 72 hours and we really haven't seen much in terms of what then the environmental cleanup effort is, or even what that will entail.
Well, I think with a kind of spill like this, the cleanup will take quite some time. It will take a lot of effort and quite a long time and lots of financial resources to properly clean it up in the end. And this type of cleanup is typically not something that you can do a cleanup within a week or two. This is years of work, because it's tons and tons of slimes which has to be picked up and trucked away and placed in a safe, environmentally acceptable manner in a disposal facility, hopefully a rebuilt tailings facility of some sort. So that type of cleanup will take quite a long time. But what I'm talking about is immediate intervention, barriers and cutoffs to prevent this from even becoming a worse disaster than what it already is.
So what would be your recommendation then, Carin, for those members of the community whose houses have been destroyed? Is it advisable for them to go back and resettle in this area? Or would you just, encourage a relocation, especially if you're saying that a cleanup, a real cleanup of an area like this could be years in the making?
Well, in the first instance, it kind of astonished me that the company Jagersfontein Development has known that there's a potential that houses can be damaged in the flood paths should there be a breach of the tailings dam, and that report was already given in 2020. So the houses who's in the flood path, those should have been relocated at that stage when they started to realize, well, people are here in the flood path of a mine because of a tailings dam. You shouldn't have houses in the down gradient side of a tailings dam, and they should be relocated in any event. And I think I've read somewhere that the mine set aside 20 million rand. That's wholly insufficient, because if you think 100 houses got destroyed, that works out to 200,000 rand per house that got destroyed, and that doesn't even begin to address the reconstruction of the sewage works, of other infrastructure, or the actual cleanup of the spillage itself. This is not a problem you're going to solve by throwing 20 million rand at it.
Carin, I wonder if you have any views on this question of culpability, because we're seeing this debate take place between the various departments, whether it's the Department of Minerals and Energy, the Water Department, the Labour Department, and of course, the development company itself, which owns this tailings dam, about who ultimately must pay the biggest cost, must pay the biggest price for this disaster.
One has to distinguish between liability and oversight. And in terms of the legislation that we currently have in place, there is no way that the company can escape liability. They are liable for all the damage caused because they undertook the activity. And under the National Water Act, specifically the provisions of Section 19 says that a person who owns land on which any activity was done or any situation exists that will cause pollution of a water resource, which is what we're having here, is liable to take all actions necessary to address the effects of pollution and remains liable until the effects of the pollution have been appropriately addressed. So the company cannot abdicate its liability here. In terms of oversight, there will be long debates about, who should have been doing the oversight. But the lack of oversight does not absolve you from liability. I cannot say, I killed people because I went 200 kilometers an hour, and I did go 200 kilometers an hour because I didn't see a speed cop. That's no excuse.
All right.
The fact that there is no oversight does not absolve you from liability for the death of that person and for the effects of what your actions has caused.
Carin Bosman, let me thank you for your time tonight, Environmental Governance Director.